Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Lucha Underground Luchador Spotlight. On our last episode, we covered the Joker of Lucha Underground, Marty the Moth Martinez, the crazy man that everyone takes for granted and ends up, killing somebody in the end. But today, we're going to talk about Marty the Moth's first opponent in Lucha Underground, the first ever Lucha Underground World Heavyweight Champion, Lucha Underground's finest, and the man that I would say was the biggest star coming out of season one, maybe save for Pentagon Jr., depending on how you look at it, Prince Puma.
Prince Puma, dare I say, the man of the temple, as
And
you said.
how fitting, too, our non-WWE Wrestler of the Year in 2015, and this is our first and only Luchador Spotlight happening in 2016. By the way, welcome to 2016, everybody.
Yes, welcome. We hope you had a great new year. And, here we are.
Thanks
Prince
to
Puma.
everybody that sent us Happy New Year messages on Twitter and in the comments section. We appreciate it. We saw all of them. We appreciate it a lot. It's awesome that you guys care enough about us and think enough about us to reach out and wish us a Happy New Year. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, you guys are absolutely amazing. Couldn't ask for a better fan base. But yet, here we are. As Ashton said, the inaugural Lucha Underground champion, Prince Puma, who set the world ablaze in his first season of Lucha Underground, had clinic after clinic after clinic, and I think really redefined what it means to be a fighting champion after he won the world title. But he hit a few bumps along the way, and his very first Ultima Lucha, despite the role he was on, was not kind to him. He fell to Mil Muertes. So now you and I are here, both to kind of trace back our steps, look at his season one just very briefly, but also to put him back together again in the second season, something that I think should be a very intriguing, very enthralling task.
Yeah, to me, if anybody were to ask me, Ashton, what do you think Lucha Underground does better than the WWE? And my first response would be, well, how long do you have?
Yes.
But if they would say I have all the time in the world, I would start with the filming and then talk about how they don't make any bones about not being an actual real shoot sport. But then my first actual wrestling related reference would be Prince Puma, because I think Prince Puma is the living human personified example of Lucha Underground just kind of getting it as opposed to WWE. Because with Prince Puma, he is an incredible athlete. He's got incredible build to him. He's got just insane muscle tone, but he's not big, bulky bodybuilder type. He is very, very fit, but if Vince McMahon would see him, he would probably say he's skinny.
Right, yes, very much agreed with you there.
And the secret to what makes him as incredible as he is, he's great at expressing himself through body language and facial expressions, which even shine through the mask. But I think that the biggest thing that makes him special is that we went through 39 episodes, 40 hours of content, and he was probably on at least 30 of those 40 hours, and he didn't speak a single word all season.
Unbelievable. A feat that, to be honest, going into it, I didn't think he was going to achieve. Especially, I thought he was finally going to speak on the Go Home episode before Ultima Lucha. I believe it would have been, well, really part one. But, I thought before that big show he would have finally said something. But no, the Death Faction cut him off, and then he did that whole boss segment where he took everybody out. So, yeah, the idea that you could go all that time without your top guy speaking, it's unheard of in this day and age. But yet that's just what makes Lucha Underground, among so many other reasons, a breath of fresh air.
Yeah, absolutely. Because to me, that's what sets him apart from anybody that's ever been a top babyface in WWE. Because in WWE, if you want to be the top guy, and more specifically, if you want to be their World Heavyweight Champion, you need to cut promos on basically every show. And in my opinion, that's a horrible way to go about business, because that makes you basically cut your potential field of World Heavyweight Champions in more than half. It makes you cut it down to probably 1/10 of what it could be if you would look at everybody who has that kind of ability and just isn't a great talker.
Exactly. Whereas with Lucha Underground, because they don't really rely on that aspect, they really widen their field. I mean,
Because
again,
really, unless you're the Miz, you don't get into the wrestling business for the talking.
exactly. And they were able to use Puma, and again, just the body language and everything. Conan was a great asset up until the very end. I just felt like the handling of Puma for season one was really perfect, and I think that does, though, if we're being honest, the perfection of season one with the handling of Puma puts a lot of pressure on the second season with the follow up, because I think Puma's going to
You
be the
know,
character
John,
we all have our eyes on.
it's so funny you say that because I've been one of the people that have kind of expressed my reservations about season two because I just find it hard to believe that they're going to top season one, and especially Ultima Lucha because of how perfect that show was. But if there's one thing, and there's a lot more than one, but if there's only one thing that I am optimistic about, it's that they are going to get Puma even better in season two.
I hope you're right, because I will say this: if they can, if we're even close to hitting the mark of how you and I have conceived of Puma, and we've touched on it a little bit in prior episodes, it really will be, to me, John Cena done right, because Puma really is the man. He is in that role, but I think Lucha Underground understands that he is going to have to struggle too, just as much as anybody else, and I really think they've laid the groundwork for that. I'd be surprised if it goes the other way, but I mean, that's the beauty of Lucha Underground. You never know where they're going to go with it. So I'm really excited to go over one more time his potential season two before we just wait for 25 more days, I believe it is, before season two actually starts.
Absolutely. So let's just kind of dive right into season one. This is way too many. Puma was in season one way too prominently for us to try and actually go through episode by episode and describe every single thing that he did. So let's just do some brief stuff. Obviously, we know that his debut match was against Johnny Mundo, and he took him to the limit, but he did lose that match.
Yes.
And then he and Mundo teamed up against the Crew. I remember that.
Right.
But after that, I don't think he really did anything big other than the triple threat $100,000 ladder match, which someone actually pointed out. Your quote of the year 2015 was ladder match from Dario Cueto, and he said that at the end of 2014.
2014. Yeah, yeah. Again, a common
To me,
theme
though,
throughout
you
that
could just
season. Yeah.
change it up from ladder match to ring the bell. It doesn't matter.
Which I did. Like I said, ladder match was only my runner up, so technically I was safe because Ring the Bell was my 2015. But yeah,
Oh,
I
nice.
got those
That's
years
good
mixed up
then.
a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's tough to remember though that Lucha season one started in October of 2014.
Yeah, yeah. It really is.
The
But
first eight, and that's the thing too, is there are 39 episodes. Only the first eight happened in 2014.
right,
Because
right.
then we get, and this is a great transition. Aztec Warfare in episode 9 was the first episode of 2015, and Puma won the title on that show. So obviously, it was a great show for him.
Yeah, last eliminating Mundo, so continuing that rivalry, which was so predominant in the first season.
Yep.
So,
I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I believe Puma's first defense was actually against Phoenix.
yes, you're right.
And that was honestly one of the most underrated matches of the year. Like to me, that's like if Puma Hernandez, which we'll talk about in a few minutes here, was my underrated match of the year. I think Puma Phoenix is a definite close call runner up.
Yeah, definitely. This is a great back and forth match. Very
I
similar
even
styles
remember
between these guys.
praising. I even remember praising that match in our rewatch, talking about how like I knew Puma was retaining because I've seen this episode already, and yet Phoenix is some of his near falls were so good that I was actually like jumping when Puma would kick out because I was like something about me, my brain tells me like no, this might actually be it, and it's just their match was so good, and there were some amazing near falls in that match that caught me even the second time around.
Oh, I got sucked in big time. I completely agree with you. These two are phenomenal athletes, and if we get to see that matchup again, given the circumstances, I don't know where Puma's going to be. Anything can
Yes.
happen.
Yeah. I mean, well, I know that we've never really done this before, but let's kind of talk about that in season two before we come back to what he did in season one. I think it would be awesome if Puma faced Muertes, lost, and then faced Phoenix for the Gift of the Gods to try and get back to the top of the line the easy way.
Yeah, yeah, I think that would be interesting.
And
Maybe
you
pull
could
some.
even have Phoenix win that match as a way to really establish him. And then we've been talking about having Puma go on like a spiritual journey. Maybe the loss to Phoenix and like the realization that he does need to go to the back of the line is what causes him to do that.
Yeah, I mean, maybe like after a loss like that, he could be like in the locker room and I don't know, maybe he sees Conan's reflection or something, kind of really dressing him down or something, and just something that kind of sets off with him. Okay, I need to step back, I need to reset, I need to get myself together before I can get back what I believe is mine.
And
And yeah,
yeah, like I said too, like he the whole reason he goes after Phoenix in the first place is because, hey man, I want to beat Mil Muertes. I know I can. I haven't yet, but I know I can. I need another chance. And this is the last chance that he has to get a title match against Mil, because he lost to Mil twice now, once for the title, the second time in the rematch. He's in the back of the line, but if he wins the Gift of the Gods, he gets a title shot, right?
right.
So he loses Gift of the Gods, and it's like, oh my God, like that was his backup plan, and he couldn't get it.
Yeah, so with no more bullets in the chamber, like you've just got no choice but to dig yourself out of the hole. You've hit bottom. So
Yeah.
there's nowhere else to go for Puma, and
And
I
that
think that'd be a
makes
great
his
story.
his kind of climbing back to the top even more impressive, because like he hit such a rock bottom that he didn't feel like he had the mental toughness to kind of fight through it and work his way back from the bottom. But then when he does come back and he actually does have to work himself back up from the bottom, it makes it that much more impressive because he failed once.
Exactly. Completely agree.
Yeah. So back to season one though. This is a new format. I guess we're going like Memento style.
Yeah, there you go.
Back to season one. After winning the title and then defending it against Phoenix, I believe this was when he got inserted into the trios division, right?
Yes,
And
yes.
and it was him, Johnny Mundo, and Hernandez, and this led to the Hernandez feud, because then we had him and Hernandez teaming up against who was it? Cuerno and Cage, I think, right?
Right.
And that was when Hernandez, border tossed him onto the apron.
Yeah. And that cell of death.
And that led to their match, which was amazing. Hernandez Puma, my underrated match of the year 2015.
Right.
And obviously, Puma did end up winning. It was by the skin of his teeth, but he ended up winning. And then Hernandez would stay in the title hunt, I believe, too, didn't he? Because that was actually Hernandez won the opportunity to face Puma by beating El Patron, and that was when Mundo turned heel.
Yes.
Yeah. We skipped over Drago, though, didn't we? The Aerostar Drago feud
Yeah, because
led to
Hernandez cost him his
Drago.
job.
Yeah,
Yeah.
led to Drago getting a title shot. Yeah, and
Yeah.
this was before Hernandez fully realized himself as a heel, because he was trying to quote unquote help Puma um, by attacking Puma, and Puma luckily dodged and he hit Drago instead, and then he claimed that he was attacking Drago the whole time.
Right.
Yeah, so we're a little bit out of order here, but again, I don't have any kind of notes in front of me. We're doing this off memory this time, just because Puma had such an amazing season one that to talk about each and every single thing that happened to him would take 45 minutes by itself.
Right.
So we know that he did have a King Cuerno match too. I'm trying to remember everyone that he defended against. I know he defended against Mundo at one point. I know he defended against Drago,
I mean, we know the big
Cuerno,
cage feud early on.
Cage. Yeah, that was the first real feud that he had after Aztec Warfare. Because on
Right.
episode 9 was Aztec Warfare, then episode 10 was Cage's debut, and at the end of the night, at the very end of episode 10 was when Cage attacked Puma and ripped the title in half, I think.
And that was after the title defense against Phoenix, right? So that still all kind of
I
lines
think
up, I
so.
think.
Yes. Yeah. I think
Yeah.
so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then that was the huge feud that they had, because then Cage had a title shot either the following week or 2 weeks later, and he lost. Uh, and that was the loss by disqualification, because he grabbed the ref and low blowed Puma right in front of him.
Right.
And then he fought Puma and forced Conan to throw in the white flag, and then he lost to Puma because of Conan's steel rod.
Right. Yes.
So that was that whole feud. They had 3 matches, and Cage won the first one, won the second, or no, he lost the first one by DQ, won the second one via forfeit, and then lost the third one.
Right.
Those were some crazy matches too.
Yeah, man, those were insane.
Yeah. So yeah, then we had, I think up next was probably the Cuerno feud, and then we talked about the Hernandez feud, and Drago was mixed in there somewhere, but it all ultimately led up to the Mil Muertes feud, right?
Yep.
And Mil I mean, he didn't even really need to do much because he had Katrina do all the heavy lifting for him, or I guess Katrina was the one that wanted it. Katrina goes after Dario because she wants Mill to be champion, and she kind of uses the excuse that Mill wants to be champion, but we all know who's pulling the strings here, right?
Exactly. It's all Katrina's doing.
Yeah, so Drago won number one contendership. He was supposed to be Puma's opponent at Ultima Lucha, but Dario Cueto sets up Drago versus Mill with that championship match on the line. And of course, Mill wins because Hernandez goes after Drago before the match starts.
Yeah, which branches off into that whole feud, so Mil Muertes has solidified his status as number one contender.
And then we get the amazing segment prior to Ultima Lucha to close episode 37, Penultima Lucha, where Mill comes out. This was supposed to be Puma addressing the crowd. This was supposed to be the first time that we heard him talk, but Mill came out right as he was about to. He had the mic in his hand and Mill's music hit, and he came out. And the Disciples of Death attacked Puma, and he handled them. All three of them. He won a 3-on-1 against the Disciples and just looks at Mill like, come on, man. You want to send these guys to do your dirty work? They're freaking putty patrol for me. I handled them. Let's go, you and me. And Mill gets in the ring, and Puma gets the upper hand again, hitting the 630 on Mill, which might have been his mistake because that meant that Mill knew what it felt like and he knew how to kick out of it.
Yeah, stared right at Katrina before he did it, and then he delivered the death blow like a boss.
Yeah, if we had an award for best non-wrestling segment of the year, I think this would have won it for me.
I think I actually have to agree with you. Yeah, this is amazing.
So then we get to Ultima Lucha, and I wish that I could say that Mill won by cheating, but if I remember correctly, he actually beat Puma perfectly.
No, he beat him clean, brother.
Yep, he did, and he did so after kicking out of a 630. The first and only man ever to kick out of a 630.
Can I just say, too, even though I know this is about Puma, like, that's how you make a heel. Yeah. Like, amazing.
Yeah, and that's another kind of thing that I would mention to the person asking me what Lucha Underground does better than WWE is they're not afraid to create monster heels, give them the championship, and have them beat the top babyface of their company.
Exactly. It's amazing.
John Cena, I'm looking at you.
Yeah, really.
Because let's be real, Puma really was the John Cena of season 1. He held the title for pretty much the entire season. He won most of his matches. We know he lost the first match and he lost a match to Cage, but even that was just Conan's fault, and you could blame that on Conan. But other than that, I don't think he ate a loss all season. At least not a singles loss.
No, not very often.
So there are comparisons to be made between Puma and John Cena. Lucha Underground just does it better.
Exactly.
And Mil Muertes is now the king of the world, but Puma has somewhere to go now because, like I said, we already talked about it. Early season, he loses to Muertes, faces Phoenix, loses to him, and then this sends him on this kind of spiritual journey in Mexico, learning about his Aztec roots.
Yeah, now, this is where it gets interesting, because I know on the Pentagon episode, you and I both agree, and I think we still agree. Ultima Lucha 2, one of the marquee matchups in my mind has to be Pentagon Jr. versus Prince Puma. I have made no bones about it. It was probably the first Ultima Lucha 2 matchup I had in my mind, even before I came to you with this series. The way I wanted to go about it, if I remember, I was going to have, when Puma came back from his, his spiritual journey, his odyssey, if you will, was have Vampiro kind of confront him, one of those cinematic segments, say that he's been keeping tabs on Puma during this journey, and he knows what Puma wants, and he can help him get there, because unlike Conan, because we got to remember that beef between Vampiro and Conan, he's not going to be in his ear incessantly, he's not going to be constantly coaching him. He knows Puma doesn't need that. He knows he's a very capable athlete. He just needs to just stand back and let Puma do his thing and let him, kind of indulge, kind of embrace the darkness a little bit. Puma obviously would rebuff the advance. Maybe he'd even walk away and bump Vampiro's shoulder, which would incense Pentagon because of the pedestal that he places Vampiro upon. And then that's how we kind of start that whole feud. And then I made the whole story, if I remember, about the idea that Puma is the last of his tribe. Because remember, Conan found him in the barrio fighting for his life. He found out about his bloodline, comes from one of the strongest tribes. And Pentagon just sees that as the ultimate sacrifice. Like, we break this guy's arm, we end a tribe, and the darkness just gets to just feast, just gets to gorge on this and just become unstoppable. So, yeah, I really relied very heavily on the mythos of the temple and the tribes for this story, and I believe I had Pentagon actually going over, oddly enough, if I'm not mistaken. Now, what about you, Ashton? What about where does Prince Puma go season 2 and Ultima Lucha?
Yeah, I think that the first thing that he does when he gets back is he has to work his way up from the bottom, so he goes over a bunch of undercard people. Maybe only two of them. Maybe like he goes over Vinny Massaro and Famous B or somebody like that. And then they kind of up the ante and they put him against maybe like a Mariachi Loco. And then they kind of up it up a little bit more and he goes against Aerostar and beats him. And then he just kind of every kind of opponent he faces, it takes a little bit longer for him to beat. And then we get to King Cuerno. And I want Puma and Cuerno to have another feud, but I want this one to actually have some substance to it because I feel like they only had one or two matches in season 1, and it was not really a full-on feud. It was just based on Cuerno wanted the title. I want this to be a feud, like the Cuerno Drago feud. I want this to be real, like they hate each other feud.
Right, right.
And then I would have obviously I would have 3 matches. I would probably have Puma win the first one, and then Cuerno does something awful to him to demand a second match, which Cuerno then wins, and then Puma wins the third one.
Okay.
And then I would go right there, I think, is where I would go to Pentagon.
Okay, and then how do you personally set up Pentagon? Because I thought you had a story of your own that you wanted to do between Pentagon and Puma. How would you want to do that?
I did have an idea. I wish I could remember it. I think was this the one that I had Pentagon kicking out of a 630 from the top of the cage?
Yeah, you had a steel cage match. That's what you had.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you had that insane spot because the pop when he would kick out after a move like that would be insanity.
And then Puma has to win via escape.
Right, right.
So that's what I would build to for Ultima Lucha. But I think early on, I would probably just have maybe like in the last Cuerno match, Pentagon is just kind of chilling up at the top of the one building that Phoenix got powerbombed through and just kind of watching the match. And I don't know what Vampiro would do throughout this because I'm more curious. Like I'm not even trying to speculate on what they're going to do with Vampiro because from what I understand, like we saw the trailer, he and Matt Stryker are still good, so I'm guessing they're still going to be commentary brothers. But then that's going to be Ian Hodgkinson. Is the character Vampiro going to have a role this season as Pentagon's master, or did he end up in a ward and get it all straightened out and get it fixed, and now he's back to his normal self? Like, and if that's the case, what the hell's Vampiro or what the hell's Pentagon doing this season? You know, like there's so much speculation to be done there. I think that it starts with Pentagon just kind of watching a Puma match, and it leads to him attacking him. Maybe like Puma has a match after he gets through Cuerno. Maybe he has another match with like Phoenix, and this is after Phoenix has already lost or cashed in and failed to win the title, the Gift of the Gods title. So Phoenix isn't a champion anymore. Puma beats him this time. First try, Puma beats him. He came close enough the first time already in the season, so now you could say that it's 50-50 booking, but the character arcs make sense in that Phoenix would beat him the first time because he's on the rise, and Puma would be on the decline, but now Puma's on the rise. Phoenix doesn't have the Gift of the Gods title anymore, so he's a little bit on the decline, so it makes sense that Puma would beat him, but maybe after the match, after Puma beats Phoenix, we have the Pentagon attack. Pentagon destroys Puma, power bombs him, maybe attempts to break his arm, and maybe this is where we get the Conan return, or maybe he just finds a way out of the arm breaker. I don't know for sure. And this is what kind of sets their feud in motion.
Let me ask you something, Ashton. Kind of just deviating a little bit from our fantasy booking, because I know you and I have really been hashing out, like, how do we get Puma and Pentagon in the same room, more or less? Taking a few steps back in relation to the trailer, because I was thinking about this while you were talking. Is it possible maybe that Pentagon and Vampiro kind of have a severance this season? You know, because I found it very interesting that in the first season, Pentagon tries having this relationship with Chavo, right? Obviously, it doesn't work out. Now he's got this relationship with Vampiro. We're all excited because it's like, wow, he's found his master. But then we see the trailer. Seems like Vampiro's trying to get himself under control. Seems like Ian Hodgkinson hasn't completely been extinguished. Seems like there's still that duality going on. I'm wondering if maybe Pentagon's going to get fed up with it all and be like, you know what? I've tried finding a leader. Maybe it's time I lead. And because keep in mind in the trailer, we saw all those not duplicate Pentagons, but we saw all those people looking like Pentagon.
Yeah.
Maybe that's him saying, it's time I lead. All these people aren't going to get me anywhere. I've had the answer inside me all along. I don't need a Chavo. I don't need a Vampiro. I don't need these guys that have already been there, done that. I can create my own path of darkness. And maybe that's what leads this kind of army, is just him going and doing his own thing. Because really, if you would have asked me immediately my thoughts where season 2 was going to go after the final 5 minutes of Ultima Lucha, I would have been like, oh my god, Vampiro and Pentagon are just going to, tear shit up. They're going to raise hell in the temple. They're going to even cause a headache, I think, for Muertes and Katrina, if I
Yeah.
was being honest. But now seeing this, I'm thinking, you know what? Pentagon just may be done with everybody. And may
Yeah.
just be thinking, you know what? I don't need to be guided. I need to do the guiding. I'm the only one with the answers around here. I had Chavo, who's scared out of his mind, who peed his pants at the mention of Mexico. I have Vampiro, who claimed to be darkness, and yet he still clings on to his humanity, which is something that would sicken Pentagon. So clearly, I'm the only one with any answers. So I need to go and preach my gospel to people, more or less. I need to go raise my army. I think that'd be pretty cool, actually, if he just stopped listening to people and doing his own thing. Because
Right.
he's been looking for people to give him the answers for, well, I mean, one whole season. We haven't gotten to the second season yet, but he's all of season 1. He was looking for somebody to give him the answers. And just imagine if he has this epiphany, like, wait a minute, nobody has the answers. I mean,
I have
that's
the
just it.
answers.
Yeah, I have the answers. Exactly. So I'm thinking maybe that's where it goes. And then maybe like that's why he goes after Puma, because once he raises up that little army, it's like, okay, well, I didn't raise an army just to kind of, hold hands, sing kumbaya. So what do I do here? I go after the top guy. And well, not the champion, but like the guy that really made the temple, that set the world on fire. I go after Prince Puma. And maybe you could even still do the whole tribe thing. But honestly, after that point, you don't even need to do it, because he's not doing it for anybody else. He's doing it for himself. So, yeah, maybe he's just like, I'm going to gun for Puma and prove a point that I don't need Vampiro or Chavo or anybody to be great. I'm Pentagon Jr., Cero Miedo. I am great, And then he just beats Puma, or comes close to beating him, in your case with the steel cage. So, just a thought I had.
Yeah. I can dig that. I think that's the toughest part, is just we don't know what's happening with Pentagon and Vampiro in season 2, so it's hard to even speculate on that.
Yeah, because I mean, I'm waffling between two ideas. I mean, obviously the one that I just got done expounding upon at length, just this whole idea he has a severance and he goes his own way. Or I think another idea that you and I kind of teased a little bit, went back and forth a little bit on in our trailer analysis video. It could be a situation where he tries to bring the Vampiro out of Ian Hodgkinson. Maybe he kind of stalks him, kind of reminds him what they did at Ultima Lucha.
Yeah, I
Kind of
mean, I
reminds him
feel
of
like we're
things.
talking a lot about Vampiro just because we want to link him to Puma, and I like that idea, but I don't like doing this much speculating without actually knowing what's happening.
Right. And but my thing is, and I think this is the good thing when you're talking about two quality workers like Pentagon and Puma, I don't even really think Vampiro is needed. And that's the only good news in this situation. I don't think he's really a
You know
vital
what though?
part of
I
the
don't
story.
think he's necessarily necessary, but I do think that like they had this huge blow off at the end of season 1. Why would they just completely reverse that storyline for season 2? There has to be a good reason for it. I mean,
Yeah.
don't get me wrong, having Vampiro back on the booth is a great reason, but I feel like there should be more of a storyline reason for it.
Right. Right. And I think they'll get one. I just think, we've got for Puma, he has, you and I both agree, gets the rematch with Muertes, loses it, go on the Odyssey. We don't know how many weeks that'll take, but we know that we'll get nice cinematic segments, whatever, to kind of recap. Comes back, tries to get in the title picture. I had him getting thwarted by Pentagon in the title picture. Like maybe he wins Aztec Warfare, and then that championship rematch he comes close, but maybe Pentagon costs him. Maybe Puma eliminates Pentagon in Aztec Warfare. That
See,
would be a
but
cool
Aztec
stuff.
Warfare happened in season 1 on episode 9.
Right.
So you're saying that you want him to have a rematch with Muertes, go on a spiritual journey, and return in time for Aztec Warfare. So you want all that story to get crammed into the first 8 episodes.
Yeah, that's not going to be good pacing.
I don't
Unless,
think
I
that's
mean,
going to happen. I would
I,
want Puma to return closer to like episode 15 to 20ish.
I mean, the only way that could work out, because I think we're making a lot of assumptions about where things are going to take place based on the model of season 1. We don't know if it's going to be a bit different this time around.
Right. I mean, I guess
are,
they could
yeah.
push Aztec Warfare back a little bit, but even still, maybe I don't know. If they wanted to push Aztec Warfare back a little bit, I could see that maybe working out. But
Right.
I don't know. I don't know what to say, John. I am not sure. It's too close. It's too close for us to keep speculating like
Hey,
this. I'm
look,
losing
yeah,
my mind, man.
I could tell, man. Look, I'm jonesing for my fix. You're jonesing for your. But thankfully, the speculation will end in like 25 days now. It is.
It's
So
24 and a half days too far away.
I know, man. I know, man. It's crazy. But at least you and I agree. No matter the road we get there, I just want to see Pentagon Puma this year. Like that. Honestly, let me just put it
Dude,
to you
how
guys
much
like
are we
this.
going to be freaking out in 25 days to the hour, though?
It's gonna be just
It's
insanity.
7:01 p.m. right now for those of you that are listening, and Lucha Underground starts at 8 for us. So at this time on the day that episode one's going to happen, John and I are going to be losing our freaking minds.
Oh, we're not
Like,
gonna shut up about it.
we're not going to
Like,
know what to do with. Like it's going to be like that freaking weekend song. We won't be able to feel our faces.
yeah, dude, it's gonna be just insanity. And I just gotta be forthcoming with everybody. Like that is my dream match for season two. Is
Pentagon
Pentagon
Puma,
versus
yeah.
Puma.
That's
Yeah,
the big one. I don't even think we're the only ones that feel that way either, because I'm pretty sure there are a lot of people that, with Pentagon's amazing rise and now Puma kind of being on almost like a freelance journey where he's not the champion anymore, he doesn't have those responsibilities he has to take care of anymore. People want that. It's not just
right.
us. Like that's just a match that people want to see.
That is the dream match.
Even
And
even if you want to, you know, speculate on the whereabouts and the status of Vampiro and Conan. People want to see that match because of that feud. People want to see Puma versus Pentagon with Conan and Vampiro in their corners.
yeah, I mean that would make it absolutely perfect. But again, I think where I take comfort is those two, meaning Vampiro and Conan, aren't necessarily needed, but they would be great enhancements for the story. I think. So we'll see
Well, I
what
think that's what
happens.
makes people want the match in the first place because
Right.
Vampiro and Conan has such well talked about and well known heat with each other.
Yeah. Oh my God, the hatred is so real. So there you go. But yeah, Puma is gonna have a very interesting second season. Again, I've had it in my mind. He works with Pentagon for so long now. I'm really glad we put that final nail in there. And now, I mean, this is it, man. This is the final Luchador spotlight. So now we wait for 24 and a half agonizing days for season two to come
And
about.
we
So
actually did. We made that decision, ladies and gentlemen. We are deciding now that we aren't going to talk about any luchadors and luchadores that didn't appear on season one yet, because now after season two, this will give us more content to put out. We're probably going to do, because again, this is based exclusively on assumptions, so I don't want to try and make it seem like we know more than we do. But when season two is over, we're assuming that there are probably going to be about 2 or 3 months between seasons two and three. So that'll give us enough time to do another series of Lucha Rewatch, and then we'll probably have another 3, maybe 4 weeks to talk about luchadors in spotlights.
yeah, so you can see the pacing will be nice, all the content will get to breathe, and yeah, I just think that's a perfect structure. I think the conversations will be more substantive once we're armed with more knowledge, and yeah, I just really enjoyed doing this series. Though I'm so glad we did this. I
Yeah.
think it got the hype meters way up. Mine's broken personally. Arrow can't
Well,
even move
yeah, I
anymore.
mean, yeah,
You
that's
know.
got to be a unanimous decision.
Oh, absolutely. So, I mean, I got nothing more else to say, bro. Do you?
No, I don't. So, ladies and gentlemen, this has been an amazing, fun ride that we've gone on with all of you. We were anticipating that Lucha Underground episode 2 or season 2 episode 1 would be this coming Wednesday, so we kind of undershot by about 3 weeks, unfortunately. So we kind of tried to stretch it out as much as we could to set it up so that we could do that, but it didn't work out so well. But still, 3 more weeks without Lucha, it's going to be incredibly painful, but when it gets here, it is going to be so worth it. We are
So glorious.
we are so thankful to the creators of Lucha Underground, whether it's Robert Rodriguez, where you want to talk about Eric Van Wagenen, Krista Joseph, Chris Roach, everybody involved, Johnny Mundo, Prince Boom, all the guys that are involved in the actual show itself, rather than the writing and the direction and production and stuff, the people that are actually in it. We are ecstatic about this show. I said it already on our awards show, but for those of you that didn't watch that because it was so long, first of all, I understand. Second of all, it's kind of unfortunate. Wish you could. Third of all, let's just get to it. John and I have become Lucha evangelists.
Yeah.
We preach the word of Lucha to the masses, to anyone that's willing to hear us out. And if I ever, even on Reddit, if somebody talks about how awful WWE is and they wish that wrestling was cool again, I'll point them into the direction of Lucha Underground episode 1 and be like, hey man, give this a shot. If you dig it, keep watching. And I try to point it out to people. I try to bring it to people's attention. Anytime I catch somebody in like an anti WWE rant, I'm just like, hey, wrestling as a whole isn't awful, right? Here, check this out.
Exactly. I try and point people in the direction as well. I try and do my part. I'm just excited that season 2 is going to be coming. I hope they can really make a splash this time around, especially given the current period that WWE
That's a
finds itself in.
Yeah, that's a big thing too. A lot of former fans that were big fans of WWE in like the Attitude Era when they had, 8, 9, 10 million fans watching every week aren't watching it anymore. But I guarantee you that everyone in that group of fans would love Lucha Underground. And the great thing about Lucha Underground is that it brings the Attitude Era elements of more adult stories and the violence and all of that stuff without the blatant sexism and racism and misogyny and all that junk.
It's both mature and progressive at the same time.
Yeah,
I think,
exactly. It's
you know,
amazing.
yeah, it's got those mature elements for guys in our age group, the demo that's primarily drawn to wrestling in the first place, and yet it recognizes that it's 2015.
Yeah.
So, and
Like
acts as
it's
such.
so funny too because I remember do you remember at the very very beginning of 2015 Max Landis made that wrestling isn't wrestling video?
Yes.
Do you remember when he was getting ready to talk about The Undertaker, he said, hold on to something because your suspension of disbelief is about to take a fucking beating.
Yeah.
Well, Lucha Underground does that too, but I don't think I've ever enjoyed a beating quite so much.
And then that's just it. I feel like Lucha Underground gets away with it because from the word go, it establishes an environment, a setting that's just, it's not of this earthly tether. When you've got dragons and this and that, you really don't have to do much suspension in the first place. I guess what I'm really trying to say is the great thing about Lucha Underground is they do pretty much all the heavy lifting. They set up an
Yeah.
environment where everything really
And
is
that's what's great
possible.
about it is that it is a TV show. It makes no bones about it. This is a TV show. If you can honestly believe that, the what are they, Targaryens or whatever they are, Tancherons in frickin' Game of Thrones are having these incestual children together, and that the whatever the giants are or the frost beasts or whatever the hell they are. And I don't watch Game of Thrones. I'm so behind the times.
I'm going to get him into it though, people, soon enough.
I'm
It's going to be
close. I'm
amazing.
close to starting it. I've seen the first couple episodes on my own, and it was good, but I never followed up on it. But regardless, if you can believe that stuff, maybe I should have gone more something that I'm familiar with. If you can believe for real that there are people that can create ice with their bodies, and that there's a girl that can create earthquakes by just thinking about it, talking about Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., you can believe that there's a dragon and a dead guy in this wrestling promotion, okay? That's what I'm trying to
Exactly.
say.
Exactly. So, guys, I can't wait for it. Ashton clearly can't wait for it. I'm concerned for the both of us, actually, that we're not even going to be able to hold
I
out.
know.
I
It's so bad. We're so like this is. I even think I posted on Facebook the other day. This show is my heroin.
Yes, I saw that. I think I like that post. So if you guys are struggling with us, I mean, we can have a nice little
We need
little
a Lucha Underground support group.
yeah, we need a Lucha Underground support circle, maybe get a guitar in there, maybe sing our feelings a little bit, do
Well,
something, but
it's a
yeah,
support group, John, not a prayer circle. We're not singing Kumbaya for God's sakes.
well, I
We
have the
can sing Pentagon Junior's theme song.
Well, I mean, that's a little weird. But regardless, we're gonna be just so ready for this. I can't wait. Everybody can't wait. Let's get here. 24 and a half days too many, but we'll do it. We'll do it.
Season 2, baby. It's going to be amazing. I'm trying to think. Oh, by the way, hey guys, guess what? Wrestle Kingdom 10's on Monday.
Oh yeah, that's right. Holy crap.
So we're going to be doing live reactions to that. That's next on our plate. So Lucha Underground's going to be amazing, but for the very immediate future, be on the lookout because Monday we're doing live reactions to Wrestle Kingdom 10, and that's going to be amazing. So we'll see everybody on Monday. Woohoo!